Hello and welcome to this episode of Focus On, where we turn our attention to the city of Bangui, where the Central African Republic hosted the 2025 African Caucus meetings. I'm Kenneth Igbomor, and in my exclusive conversation with the country's Finance Minister and Chairperson of this year's caucus, Herve Ndoba, who also serves as the IMF Governor for the Central African Republic, he shares with me how the meeting's true legacy is proving that even fragile states can rewrite their narrative when the political will is strong.
Well, Kenneth, thank you very much for having me with you tonight to discuss this journey. But let me correct something. The African Caucus has not been announced to Central African Republic. It wasn't like this. I had to fight for this because, as you know, countries should show that they have the capacity to host this kind of events. And we know that the lack of infrastructures in Central African Republic is a reality. But I discussed this with the president of the Republic, and he told me that we should go ahead. We should try to do what we should do to fit the requirements of this kind of event, because at the end of the day, it's an exceptional opportunity for us, not only to host this kind of event so that we have to accelerate the investment into some infrastructure, but also, and this is the most important thing, to change the narrative on the country, because we don't have the lead on this narrative, unfortunately. And we know that in most of the newspapers, when we look at the news regarding Central African Republic, there is no good news most of the time. Even if you Google Central African Republic, the first lines that you will see, it's only bad things on the country, always civil wars or things like that. And we wanted to take this exceptional opportunity to show to the rest of the priority to the continent that we are fine, we are good in Bangui. Yeah. The situation is calm. People are living, of course. We went out of 3 decades of critical situation, conflicts and violence. But during the last 10 years, it's fine. The president did an excellent job to consolidate peace. And now we are looking for development. So it was a very difficult journey, but we are really satisfied. We have engaged, as I said in my closing remarks, around 800 people working on this very important event, and all the partners we work with in the city were obliged to increase their standards. So I don't know if there is any other situation in which people can fast track the building capacity we are talking about. So that's the reason why in my opening remarks, I call for the institution of Bretton Woods and all of the, the financial institutions to really do their best to help the countries, fragile countries particularly, who wants to host this kind of event, because it's the fastest track way to build capacity into the country.
Yeah, because changing the narrative is very key, especially if you're going to tell that new story about the green shoots that are coming up in the country, the opportunity for investment that this land offers. A lot of people say landlocked, some will say it's land linked. Exactly. And let's talk about your development trajectory, key priorities, and how that aligned with the agenda that how that story and how you picked the key areas here: infrastructure, human capital, technology, and even the climate.
It was really important for us to have this theme. Let me tell you that it was a little fight, to have a convention on this, an agreement on this theme, because for the IMF and World Bank perspectives regarding the green assets, It's something that they are working on, but as the statement is not really clear as we're speaking because we have to measure it, etc., etc. So they don't really want, to move forward on this right now, as we don't have all the tools, to have the clear indication of this. But for us, we truly believe that hosting this African Caucus in Bangui, which is part of the Basin Congo forest, the second largest forest in the world, and the South African Republic owns 10% of this forest. We couldn't let this opportunity go without talking about this green assets, which are very important and for which we have to mobilize finance from this, because this green assets gives social services to the rest of the world by capturing the carbon. Yeah. So back to the two other sub-themes, resilient infrastructure, human capital. It's key because, as we said during this conference, if we don't have energy, if we don't have roads, how can we make, for example, the ZLECAf happen? How can we create value chain in our countries without energy, without electricity? So this is really key, and we really need to increase our production capacity in our countries.
As someone watching the conference, something that struck me so much, my first time in Bangui, I must say the young people of the country kind of struck me because I saw the ownership that they had of this event, and I'd like to speak to that, and the sort of inspiration this gives them in terms of the capability of this country, to attract a conference of this nature, and even possible investors coming in to change the narrative here.
Yeah, for instance, what we did is just that we called those young people, most of them are students, in different sectors, and we explained to them that this is an exceptional opportunity for them to show what they can do, to show the human values that we have in Central African Republic, and to show that they are the future of this country. And as it's the same story for every country in Africa. So it was really important for us that they can show the best, so that people can see that the future is preserved. But we really need to fast track also those investments if we really want to capitalize on exactly. Scale is very important.
So let's go now to the declaration that's come out of this year. A lot has been said. Now the communique is out there. First part of the journey. Absolutely. Now down to the annual meetings in Washington, where this is going to be pushed. Let's get to some of the key highlights of that declaration, and the legacy this caucus at Bangui is going to leave.
We really insist. We urge the IMF and the World Bank, for example, to fast track the G20 common framework, and to ask for the countries, the African countries who are in the high distress risk of debt to join this group if they want it, so that they can address this issue on the debt situation. This is really, really important because a lot of countries in Africa are into this situation. This is the first point. The second point is that we asked to the IMF and the World Bank to increase the technical assistance capacity and to let this technical assistance capacity fit really the needs of the countries, because sometimes we do have technical assistance, but which is not adapted to the needs of the country. That's the second point. Third, we ask them to increase the financing at a low cost, very low cost, the concessional one, so that the countries who are in the situation of fragility can still benefit from it, because it's really important. When we have a gap, as we said into the declaration, between 130 billion to 170 billion US dollar of gap of infrastructure, of investment in infrastructure every year, we really need to address those challenges. But we also confirm our engagement as governors of the IMF and the World Bank to enhance our fiscal capacity using our reforms that we want. We have to strengthen our reforms to move forward on this so that we can also mobilize domestic revenues, which is also key if we want to move forward on this.
Yeah, because one key stakeholder here was the private sector.
Yeah.
You know, and that message, sending that message to the private sector was very key and at the heart of the conversations here. What sort of feedback, you know, have you gotten so far?
It was really important because we include this private sector into this African caucus. That's the reason why the day before the opening of the caucus meeting, we had this private sector day, very important a moment, and during all the day we had very impressive sessions with different stakeholders, and they discuss about how to accelerate the scale of those private sector, how to capture money from their direct investment, etc., etc. And finally, we understood that the private sector just wants some little things. First of all, to have a business climate which is favorable for them, to have a regulatory framework which is stable. This is also really important for them, so that they can plan exactly. This is also important for them, and also to have the facilities which are needed. Of course, they have to pay their taxes, etc., etc. But sometimes we have to recognize that the fiscal framework in our countries sometimes is not really easy.
Now we've gone full circle from fighting to get the meetings in Bangui to planning and preparing to host everybody, putting logistics in place. Now we're at the end. What's that legacy you would say of these meetings will have? Whenever people look back and say the 2025 African Caucus meetings were held in Bangui, what's that key legacy you want to think about?
Some of the people who assist the technical team, who assist to the African Caucus meeting for now kind of decades, they told me that this is the first African Caucus they had during the last 10 years at this level. So they said that we raised the bar. So the legacy for me is just to show to the rest of the world that even if we are a fragile country, if the will is there, then we can make it, and we can change the narrative of our countries. And this is also the reason why I engaged this innovation, which is to create the African Caucus today. So this is the very powerful legacy that we are owed to.
And that was Herve Ndoba, the Finance Minister of the Central African Republic and the chair of the 2025 African Caucus meetings, reflecting on the significance of this year's gathering. I'm Kenneth Igbomor. Thanks for watching.